let's do some real patchwork. We're going to create a max patch that is able to find a list of all devices in the current track that is selected. To do that, there is luckily a lot of programming already done by the nice fellows of Ableton and the nice fellows of Cycling74. Actually, we don't need any of this right now, but we can start with an abstraction. And what is an abstraction? An abstraction is something that somebody has programmed in Max, and then he had saved it in a way that allows you to use his whole conglomerate of objects and their wirings to each other as if it was one single object. So what you do is you hit M4L max for life dot API dot get current track ID, I think. Jesus, max for life dot API dot get selected track index, I think. Yeah, that's it. And if you hold Command and double click it, you can see that it's actually nothing else than a bunch of coding that somebody else has made for you. And look, he was even so nice to paint things in yellow and green. But we don't really need to worry about this. If you want to find more about good programming, check these things out because they are programmed masterfully. But all we need to know is that you put a bang up in here, which we can do by creating a button. Buttons being created by hitting B for button. And connect the button to the get selected track index object. And then the left output, I believe, is going to show us the ID of the track that's currently active. It's important because we need the ID of the currently selected track. And to do that, we will need a live.path, and we need to feed it a message that goes path live_set tracks. And now what we want to have is we want to have the index of the currently selected track, because that is the track that our device is in when you push the button. So what we do instead of putting a number here is we put a variable in here, and you do variables in Max with a $sign. It's not really a variable, but hey, what a $sign means is the first number that enters the left inlet of this message is going to replace, well, the $sign. This is going to mean we hit up this, and now when we bang this button, a message is going to send out here that says, go and select the track that is currently selected. And then we have a live.path, and it's going to output an ID. There is another abstraction that the nice folks from Ableton have made. The next abstraction we look for is max for life.api dot get all device IDs, I think. Yes, it works. Nice. So the ID that we put here is then fed into this abstraction, which is also very nicely programmed. And its output is going to be a list of all the IDs that the current track has in it. So you can see there's all of these in here. What we would like to have is a U menu. A U menu is kind of a drop-down menu. And we wanted to have each device here listed with its name, so you can select the device that you want to track. Now, in order to do this, we need one thing, which is going to be the name of each of these ID numbers. And there is a third abstraction that we can use, which is called max for life.api dot get device name. Ah, Jesus Christ. Max for life.api dot get device names. Now what this does is you feed it a list of IDs, and it's going to output the list, first of all here, as a list of names, But then it's also going to output it here as a sequence of names that is suited so that you can just connect it here. And it automatically creates all of the different entries into the view menu. Now, there is one problem with this output that I have, and you can see it here. If I bang this button a few more times, you can see a lot of those. And that's because it just keeps adding those things. Now, to override this problem, what I like to do is actually take the left outlet and work with that. So once again, let's see what comes out of the left outlet. What we want to do with this list is we want to split it up into separate entries and then fill them here as entries to the view menu. Also, we want to, at the start of the whole operation, once clear this view menu of all entries. You can do this by sending the clear message to it. So let me demonstrate. Boom. Now it's clear. But we actually do this in a more interesting way. There is an object in Max that is just called T, or trigger, if you will, but T is sufficient. And what a trigger object does is it gets any kind of input, and then you can set different formats of outputting the same input. For example, in this case, what we get is actually a list, but we can output it as a list and also, instead of the list, just as a bang, or instead of the bang, we could output any kind of message. So we could just say clear in here. Now what's going to happen is when the list gets in here, the first thing that's going to happen is the thing on the right, because in Max, everything is processed from the top right to the bottom left. So when you write these triggers, you really have to be careful in which order you write them, because the last thing you write is going to be the first thing that triggers. In this case, it's the clear, and you can see here, output 1, clear. Now you send this clear into the view menu, and then you have the list, which comes out here. But this list we cannot put into the view menu like this. We need to split it up and then add it to this view menu as separate entries. And for that, there is a few very nice objects that are all called zl.something. You can see there is a whole list of them. And if you ever want to process lists, because that's what the ZL object does, go and use one of these. Because it's hard to remember all of them. Always, it's good advice to just check the help files, because Max has awesome help files for every object there is. To access a help file, just hold Alt and click on the object. And you can see that here we have all the ZL objects, and you can use them and test them out. And up here you have the different tabs, so they are alphabetically ordered. And if you don't know what you're looking for, just browse through these, because you're going to find what you need. What we need are two of these ZL objects. One of them is going to be iter1. What iter does is it takes a list and it iterates it. So it sends them out in chunks. In our case, in chunks of 1. So instead of this list that has 2 entries, it's going to send the first entry, and then it's going to send the second entry afterwards. To actually put these single items of the list into the view menu, we need to do some formatting, because the way that you add a new entry to a view menu is you say append and then the entry that you want. So if I hit append hello, you can see that hello appears as a new entry. And when I hit it again, a second hello appears. Now in our case, that means we have the entries that we want, but we still need the append. You can prepend, append. So what the prepend object does is it prepends something. It puts something in the beginning of the thing that you send into. So when you take your list, you iterate it, so you have the single entries, and then in front of every entry, you put the word append. So you prepend, append. And then you can put it here. And now, when we hit this button, you can see that we have both the devices, the param checker and the MIDI effect rack, already as entries. Now I said we were going to need 2 ZL objects, and that is true because we have not yet all that we need, because what we want is now select one of these devices and then have a second view menu show us all the parameters inside of the device. And for that, we will need to be able to reverse engineer this entry to the actual ID of the thing. So bear with me. What we do is we go back to here where we get the device IDs, and we put these into a list. And we do this with the zl.lookup object. What zl.lookup does is you put a list in its right inlet, and then you can put a number in the left inlet, and this number is going to ask the zl.lookup object to output the nth object. So just to demonstrate, currently this is a, let's do it like this. Currently this is a list with 2 inputs. So we have the position 0 and position 1. Now if I hit 0, Now if I hit 0, you can see that we just get ID. Oh, that's weird. But then if we get 1, you can see we get 8. So wait a second. What's this list about? This list shows us the IDs of the param checker and the MIDI effect rack. And the param checker is ID 8 and the MIDI effect rack is ID 33. So actually there should be quotation marks around ID and 8 and ID and 33, but they are not. What we should do now is work around this issue. And the easiest way to work around the issue is to just cut off all the IDs and just have the numbers remain. And there is a handy nice ZL for that as well. It's called zl.filter. And zl.filter gets a argument which lets you choose what you want to filter out of your list. In this case, we want to filter out the ID. Now we take this list, we put it through our filter, and what should remain should be a list of only 2 elements, being the ID number of the first device and the ID number of the second device. And this did not work because I connected this to the wrong inlet. I'm sorry. Bam. Now, when we hit 0, we get number 8, and 1, we get number 33, which is the 2 ID numbers of our devices. Okay, so we have a list that only consists of the numbers, and we have a view menu that only consists of the names, and they are both in the same order. So luckily, the first outlet of the view menu is the item number that you chose. So the first item is going to be item number 0, and the second item is going to be number 1. So when we just connect this to the lookup, and we select a device, you can see that the correct identification number is already output. We want to have access to all of the parameters inside of the device. For that, we will need another Max for Live abstraction, which is called M4L.api.get all parameter IDs, I think, which is called maxforlive.api.get all device parameter IDs. Instead of just taking the number, we should put ID in front of it. But we can do this with a prepend object. So we say prepend ID, and it's going to put ID in front of the stuff. And now when we hit that, we should get a list of IDs for every single parameter in the selected device. So you can see the MIDI effect rack has quite a lot of IDs of parameters inside of it. To be able to have all these in another view menu, we kind of do the same trick. We just say max for live.api.get all get all device parameter IDs. Ah, it works. No, that's stupid. We need to get all device parameter names. Max for live.api.get parameter names. And you feed the list in there, and once again you get the option of either taking the right outlet of it and putting it in here, but I think the more clean way is to use these objects. Just to show you one more awesome feature of Max. Once you have something like an algorithm, like in here, we convert this list of device names into something that the view menu can work with. To save some space and to make everything look neater and to be more easily able to copy and paste this stuff, it's a good idea to encapsulate things. Encapsulating you can do by hitting Command-Shift-E. And it creates a subpatcher in your patch that basically has the same things in it, because you can Command double-click it and you can see it's exactly what we've programmed before, with an inlet and an outlet, which are represented here and here. You can give it a snappy name, names to view menu format, and then hold Alt and drag this thing to copy it. Put it here, and what we should have now is a list of device parameters. So we hit this, we select the MIDI effect rack, and you can see they're all there. Now, once again, we do the same trick. We have all the IDs, we filter out the ID, we take a ZL lookup object, put the list in there, and then the index here gets to look this up, and you prepend ID. More copy and pasting. Okay, let me clean this up for a moment there. I think we do it like this and like that, and move everything up a little bit. Okay. Okay, so what we get out here should be the ID number of, we need to do this once again. And now what we should get is the ID number of the thing that we chose. Cool, so now we have access to all the parameters inside of a device of our choosing. Now the only thing we need to do is add a live.observer. And then feeding the live observer this ID. And then we can add a message box out here. Once again, go to MIDI effect racks, choose any old macro like the first one, and tell it to observe the value. And you can see that everything we input here is automatically observed. So add this to your, whoopsie daisies, add this thing to your presentation, put it somewhere nice, and when we're at it, why not also add the view menus to the presentation? So we're kind of getting to it slowly. And then also add this big button. Put it here. Now, the one thing that I advertised as being useful was being able to see the arpeggiation styles. And the problem is, it's not actually that easy, at least as far as I know. Because with the live observer, you still only get these numerical values. But there is a workaround for that. Specifically, it's a very clumsy workaround, but it works for our purposes. And it's called a call. A call is basically a lookup table for Max for Live. It's a text file, and you can give it a snappy name. Call it like call arpeggios. And I advise you to go at embed1. This at embed1 bit is an attribute. It's kind of like an argument, but it works differently, whatever. What you can do with the call is you can command double click it, and it's going to open up a nice old text window. And in this text window, you can input data like this. You say entry number 0 is linked to, I don't know, hello. And then this entry number 1 is linked to bye. And then you quit it. You don't forget to save it. And because it's embedded, it means that this text file is saved within your patcher, which is very important because sometimes you forget it and then you save your text file somewhere outside of your Mac search path and then Macs can't find it anymore. Oh, it's like Christmas when you have 20 dogs or something. But now, what you can do is you can ask this call about its entry in number 0. And it's going to say it's a symbol, and the symbol is called hello. So what I would do is I would now create a call with all those different arpeggiation modes. But I'm a programmer, so I just steal stuff like all good programmers do. Because, where was I? Here, there is our call. Just take the stuff because it's not important to us. And open up this one and paste everything. So, save this. And now we have our arpeggiator call.